Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach Continue. I'm continuing on with the top 10 greatest matches on the WWE Network. I was able to do a review last night on the Chi-Town Rumble between Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair. Number 2 on the list came from a match from the Clash of the Champions 9, which of course was in 1989, held in New York. The title was New York Knockout. Back in the day, and the match was the main event from this show, which ended up being Ric Flair versus Terry Funk in an I Quit match. And this match started up on the playlist right as Terry Funk was about to make his walk down to the ring. And for 1989, this was as close to a WrestleMania sort of entrance that they could really give somebody. This match was held on the Clash of the Champions, which was a free show that Turner gave away on TBS. This was sort of the fallout of, I believe, Halloween Havoc, which was the in-between Starrcade of 1989. So this was a real big show back in the day. If you were following the NWA, you were following WCW, as most people like to call it, and it's what I refer to it as. Even though it wouldn't be WCW for I think till 91 or maybe 92 when Turner took it over. The Clash of the Champions was a real big deal. Ric Flair versus Terry Funk definitely would have pulled big pay-per-view buys if this show was held, but it was a ratings grabber trying to grab attention to the NWA. People that were used to, the WWF at the time only giving away big matches. Unless if you watch Saturday Night Live, you would get some pretty good matches, but you would never get matches unless you actually ordered the pay-per-views of that time. And here's the NWA just basically giving them away for free. On this show, you saw Ric Flair versus Terry Funk, Luger versus Brian Pillman. You got to see the Freebirds versus the Road Warriors. Lots of great matches were held on these Clash of the Champions. And that's why people hold them so dear, because basically these were big shows with big matches that had, title changes and everything. They were just given away for free for being a cable subscriber on TBS back in the day. Of course, when Eric Bischoff would come into power, he would, start to trim back on the Clash of the Champions, bringing in more pay-per-views, which of course would bring more dollars into WCW, and over time that sort of worked. But at the same time, with the dying of the Clash, you saw the fall of WCW, and I don't know if you can really relate to those things. I remember the last main event of a Clash of the Champions I can remember, I think, is like, I remember both outsiders weren't there. I think it was Scott Hall and Macho Man Randy Savage versus the Steiner brothers or something like that. All I remember is that they built up the fact that it was going to be Hall and Nash, and one of them pulled out due to some sort of a reason, and Macho Man had to full in, and it was fun to watch the show, but it didn't have the feel of the earlier Clash of the Champions as you were a kid. Now, this match really does deserve to be in the top 10 list. Ric Flair and Terry Funk. I believe the build-up to this match was that as Terry Funk likes to put it, the start of the hardcore era back in the day, with Terry Funk giving a pile driver. I was going to call it a suplex, but yeah, the pile driver on top of a table, which, was a really big deal back in the day. Of course, Ric Flair, who had the airplane accident, with the broken neck and the broken back, taking a move like that on top of a table. Nobody had really seen that before, and that was instant heat for everyone to hate Terry Funk at that time. Now, Terry Funk was a part of Gary Hart's the group of wrestlers at that time. Terry Funk definitely was the heel. Ric Flair, as he's announced by David Penzer, is called out as being the 6-time world heavyweight champion. As you can tell, that he would win a lot of champions after that point. He would lose the championship and win it a lot. After this fact, Ric Flair always was the man, and this definitely is thought of as one of his best matches. Of course, Terry Funk having great matches just about everywhere that he went. The build-up of this match being the I Quit match is that basically it seems like both of these guys' careers are on the line, even though it's not really put that way. I know that Terry Funk, was the guy who moved around, didn't stay in one territory for a long time. I don't know if it's like Beyond the Mat, where he's announcing one of his like 15 routine retirements that the guy would have in his career, but it seems as if his career is on the line, the pride of his family, the pride of Texas. I don't know if Flair's career is on the line as well, but they keep basically saying that this is the end of an era. The announcers for this match are Jim Ross. When you go back and you watch these classic NWA pay-per-views, you know, Jim Ross is sort of being knocked as always being a real Southern announcer with a Southern, a sort of style of voice. But his voice is nothing like he ever did in WWE or WWF. I mean, I don't know when he changed the draw of his voice. It doesn't even sound like the voice that you hear when you listen to the Ross podcast that he does now. It's very interesting. Him and oh shit, I forgot the other legendary's announcer's name. Shit. I was gonna call him Zabisco, but that's not his name. Son of a bitch. I forgot the other guy's name, and it slipped my mind. And I'm sure the minute I press the button, I'm gonna forget what it was. But these guys, they get into the ring. They don't want to wrestle. They want to fight. They're instantly going after each other. They start brawling inside of the ring. Ric Flair delivers a chop to Terry Funk that makes Funk fall all the way out of the ring, and they fight around the ring. And Ric Flair is beating Terry Funk in the corner. He's on the top turnbuckle, punching down on his forehead, and he's yelling at the ref to bring the microphone. And at this point, Jim Ross is putting over the fact that the NWA spared no expense for this I Quit match. They want the fans to actually hear the wrestlers say I quit to sort of build the anticipation of this match. Jim Ross is putting over the fact that they have this wireless microphone that the referee is going to be able to carry around, and Flair is yelling out, get the mic. And finally, they bring over this microphone for the referee that has this huge wire coming out of it. I don't know if they couldn't find where the microphone was, or they hadn't brought it out yet, but I think what happened is they had to grab David Penzer's microphone that he was announcing during the match. But for the next spot from then on out, when Ric Flair would be getting beat on by Terry Funk, the ref would have the correct microphone. They're building up the fact that you can hear the wrestlers almost throughout the whole match, a lot like the WrestleMania 28 Hell in the Cell, where you can hear Shawn Michaels begging Triple H to stop beating on him, and he's basically saying, you're the only guy who can stop this, Shawn. You have to stop this. You have to end the streak. Basically telling him as the referee that he has to ring the bell and say the Undertaker can't go on. But, in this match, when we're about to see Terry Funk setting up a pile driver of Ric Flair in the middle of the ring, we hear Terry Funk actually yelling to Ric Flair that, remember the airplane accident, remember your neck. Do you want me to suplex you? Say I quit right now. And we hear Ric Flair say that he's not going to quit, and Terry Funk immediately hits the pile driver in the middle of the ring. These guys go back and forth, and they're fighting around. Finally, at one spot in the match, it doesn't really seem like it's coming, and it doesn't really seem like we're going to see the end of the match. We see Ric Flair slap on the figure 4 leg lock, and after asking, finally Terry quits. It says that the match is going to be over. They announce Ric Flair as the champion and the winner of the match. And then from there, we see Gary Hart getting in the ring, taking off his jacket. Gary Hart starts to attack Terry Funk. And then we see, as Jim Ross calls it, the Japanese. We see the Great Muta and his manager, who I'm not really sure. I think they called him the Dragon Master. Come down to the ring, and they start putting the boots to Flair, and they're attacking. And then out of the middle of nowhere, Lex Luger, no, I apologize, that's too far in advance. Sting comes running down to attack the Great Muta, who's on this, he wasn't even on the show, but they make light to, he's there because he had received an award as the most popular wrestler in the NWA. Ric Flair had won an award of the wrestler of the decade. Both had received trophies. From there, we see Lex Luger coming running down to the ring. He starts attacking Sting, and then basically all of the heels start to walk out of the match. They're all walking up to the top of the stage. Then we see Gary Hart point over to the side of the stage and telling Lex Luger Lex Luger goes running up to the podium, and then we have this curtain that drops right in the way of the camera, and not able to see any of the action, but we see Lex Luger bash 2 trophies with a blue folding steel chair. Basically saying that this is a very sort of selfish act, basically taking out the guys' awards that they were given by the fans. And that is the end of the show, thinking that you move on, possibly having big matches with Lex Luger and Sting, but also wanting to see Sting versus the Great Muta. Or is it going to be Ric Flair against Lex Luger? Lex Luger, who'd won the United States Heavyweight Championship on the show by beating Brian Pillman. It didn't make a lot of sense because the announcers are calling out the fact that there is no connection between the Japanese, Gary Hart and Lex Luger. They all just were heels, and they chose the right time to attack because they saw the moment. But this match was given a 5-star rating by Dave Meltzer. If you like old school wrestling, you'll really like this match, and I think you should go out of your way to check this one out. But this is really the height of WCW. I don't know if this match is on any of the Ric Flair DVDs or on any of the WCW collection. I guess it has to be on the Clash of the Champions, because this is possibly one of the best matches, and I forgot that they had a Best of the Clash of Champions, so I'm sure it's on that one. If not, just fire up the WWE Network and you'll find it in no time.